All right, thank you for tuning into the Game is a Game podcast. Definitely hit rate, subscribe, leave us a comment. On this episode, we're going to go ahead and break down last night's Western Conference Finals matchup between the Suns and the Clippers. It was a barn burner, the Valley Oop, that's what they're calling it. So look forward to that, and then we're also going to break down Boston's hire of Ime Udoka. That one came out of left field, but another decisive move for the Boston Celtics. So definitely subscribe. But first,
Yes, yes. Ha ha, ha ha. I need the realness. Somebody feel this.
all right, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Game is the Game podcast. I'm here as always with my little bro Eric. As we said on the last couple of episodes, look for our season breakdowns. We're going to record the first two tomorrow, the Knicks and the Sacramento Kings. So if you're a fan of those, look for those this weekend. We're probably going to drop a lot all at the same time. So the good, the bad, the ugly of their season and projecting their off season and their hopes for the future. So look out for that. Subscribe, rate us, leave us a comment. We appreciate it. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about the Western Conference, sprinkle a little bit of NBA coaching news in there. But we'll go ahead and talk about Clippers versus Sun game 2. And before I do that, let me shout out my bro, Michael Walker Jr. He was upset that I didn't shout him out the last episode. He's a Clippers fan, and he wanted me to apologize for picking the Utah Jazz to beat the Clippers. So let me go ahead and apologize for absolutely nothing. I do not apologize. Why would I apologize for that? It's a shameful, shameful performance that the Jazz did. You can't lose to the
I
Clippers.
mean, if you watched the game last night, I think that I'm not going to say that this would have completely changed the series, but you saw that when the Clippers try to go small at times in the game with Terrence Mann, you saw that Sarge posted him or sealed him every time. Every time down the floor, he either post or sealed him. And they were able to get good offensive possessions out of that set every time.
And they stopped running that dumb shit.
And
they stopped running.
You saw that they had to play with size. They had to insert DeMarcus Cousins or Zubac. So let the lesson be learned for the Utah Jazz. I think that even if that's not Rudy Gobert's game, you have to post a smaller guy. You have to. You have to make him pay on that side of the ball. You have to.
And I think this is where analytics goes too far, because a lot of times, and you mentioned it, there's a lot of times where Gobert is open and he has good seal position and they don't give it to him. So, you have to get to the point where you're actually looking for him and feeding him. So it's a two-way street. He needs to get better with posting and sealing, but they also need to look for him because there were opportunities to get him the ball.
You're right. You're 100% right. But I think that we have to. I'll put a little bit more onus on the Utah Jazz players, the players that are around him, because you have to recognize that and you have to believe in him as a player. He's the biggest player on the court. He's the strongest player on the court. And there were plays where he was calling for it, and they didn't give it to him. So
to shoot the three.
Go back on the little bit of the series, it just shows you have to. Sometimes you got to take analytics. You got to take all of that stuff out of the game. I love what Phoenix did. I love what Ayton and Sarge did. They posted the little guys every time. You have to.
So that's a good segue to talk about the actual game. Ayton was a beast. This was a game that Booker started very slowly. He got knocked out of the game when he bumped heads with Patrick Beverly, and they were still able to overcome it. This is, his box score, if you just look at it, is probably not the most enticing because he only had about 24 points, but it was just so efficient. And like you said, because they posted him and they, used him on seals and rim runs and things of that nature, they had to play Zubac, which took away from them going small and playing the way that they played versus Utah, that they found so much success. One thing that I will say is Paul George, he had the main blunder at the end where he missed those 2 free throws, but he actually played very well, especially down the stretch. I think he scored the last 9 baskets And then Reggie Jackson, I don't know what's gotten into him. He's just turned into an all-star player. He played well again for the Clippers. But, they lost in that last play. I think I'm one of the few people in the world that knows that you can't goaltend on the inbound pass, because I remember we ran the play when I played at Fresno State in practice, and I said that's goaltending, and the coach made me look through the rule book to see that it's not goaltending. So that was a great play. That was a big, big win. The Clippers, they've come back down 2-0 in every series that they've won so far this postseason, but I think this is a little bit different versus the Sun. I think it's going to be a tall task if Chris Paul is coming back on Thursday.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely a tall task. I mean, you talked about, I want to kind of address some of the points you talked about. I would say that Paul George didn't really play well, in my opinion, in the first 3 quarters of the game. He did play well down the stretch. He did have those 2 missed free throws that were critical.
Huge missed free throws.
Free throws are a part of the game, and they happen, but it just is unfortunate that it happens at that point of the game where you're up by 1. If you make one of those free throws, the best that comes out of that situation with the 8 and tipping is overtime. But unfortunately, he missed both free throws. Obviously, Reggie Jackson played well, but yeah, it's a tall task that's in front of the Clippers now, especially with Kawhi Leonard being out and Chris Paul coming back. This series, the Clippers have to win this next game, and it's a real tall task in front of them. I just wonder, are there players, the ones that are playing very well? We talk about players like Reggie Jackson. Can they continue to shoot and play like the way that they're going to play? Because eventually you would expect that they're going to slow down. At some point, they're going to start to slow down. So I just wonder, is game 3 and game 4 at home, are those the games that they're going to slow down?
Yeah, that's a great point. Luka Doncic came in and he gave them some play, but he's just such a liability on defense. They tagged him, Campaign tagged him every time. Campaign has been playing, sensational basketball.
Sign back there, who's the best paid, Martin, Cam, or Major? And I circle Cam.
So
he dominated. He was very dominant yesterday.
He's been killing it. That's just a testimony to players getting better, and it's also a testimony to something that I will say I'm going to have dropped it. I actually created it, and I'll show everybody the timestamp so they don't think I'm just a bandwagon hopper. I actually have a video where I say that the Luka Trae Young conversation isn't over, and that I think that Trae Young is actually going to be the better player. And I was going to wait to drop it this off season, and I might have missed my timing on this because it looks like the world is seeing who Trae Young is. But one of my points in that video is that with younger point guards, especially the ground-bound ones, the Russell Westbrooks, the John Morants, the bigger point guards with the athleticism, they pop immediately. But the smaller point guards that are ground bound, that don't have that, explosive athleticism, it generally takes them time for them to get used to the NBA game. And, if you think about it, it makes sense, because if you're one of these dominant point guards, they're going to put a 6'8" guy on you with length and speed. And you've never seen that type of action before. You've never seen 7-footers at the rim on every team before. If you look at Trae Young's development, if you look at Steve Nash's development, Steph Curry's development, these are all guys who started slowly in their careers and then progressed to tiers that people didn't believe that they could get to. And I think that with smaller ground-bound guards, it just takes them more time to develop. So I'm not really surprised that Campaign has really, blossomed to the player that he's become. But yeah, shout out to him. So game 3. Still no word on Kawhi Leonard, but I don't know. I guess, once again, they haven't released any information on him, so I'll be surprised if he plays, but who knows?
Yeah, and like I said, with Chris Paul coming back, going on the road in that environment, having a Chris Paul that's fresh. Obviously, he's missed the last 2 games, but he's going to come back. He's going to be fresh. He's going to be ready to go. That will, give them another player, a player that can, control the pace of the game and get them into their sets, and make sure that they're getting good shots down the stretch. Because if you look at the last game where Phoenix was going down the stretch in the 4th quarter, they took a lot of bad shots.
They did.
They
Campaign
took a lot
did
of bad shit.
And
pay
I'm
attention
giving
to
him
that.
love, but there was one that he
Yeah.
forced over Zubac where Zubac blocked it.
blocked it. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he forced
That was a bad shot.
They had a lot of bad shots. They had some turnovers with the Patrick Beverly hitting the ball out of Booker's hands. Obviously that can happen at any time. But they had a lot of bad shots. So with Chris Paul coming back, you have to expect, okay, down the stretch, Chris Paul is going to be in the game, and he's going to make sure that they get into their sets, and he's going to make sure that they're getting good shots down the stretch. So, like we said, it's a tall task in front of the Clippers. But what I'm mainly looking for out of the Clippers is, I mean, it's Paul George's time to shine. You're down 2-0, and a lot of the things are going to be on your shoulders. And I want to see what he's going to do. Like I said, the first 3 quarters of the game, he didn't necessarily play well. He started to pick it up down the stretch. He hit a couple of shots. He had some defensive plays that he made. But can he do it for all 4 quarters in Game 3?
Yeah, and this is to talk about injuries. We talk about Kawhi Leonard's injury. This is where Serge Ibaka's injury hurts them too, because he could have been useful versus Ayton, because we've talked about Zubac before, how it looks like Magic Johnson is getting a lot of redemption for the Laker fans who were upset that they traded him, because this is the 3rd series in a row where he's played and he has not played up to snuff. And Ayton has just dominated that side, offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding. Zubac, he's another player that has to play better too. He can't just let Ayton just dominate. He has to, not pay him to draw, he has to lose, but it can't be so one-sided. So
yeah, and I think the biggest thing for Zubac is he cannot, I think that talent is one thing, size is one thing, and the things that Ayton is able to do on the court that Zubac is not able to do. But I think that the thing that Zubac can do is he cannot let Ayton just dominate the glass on both ends like that. He cannot let him dominate and get offensive rebounds and get second shots for the players. So Zubac has to step up his intensity and attack the glass, and not let Ayton dominate him on the side of the ball, because that can, ultimately, like I said, lead to second chance points and having a major effect on the game.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and close it out with some coaching news. So today, Woj reported that Ime Udoka, shout out to another Niger boy doing this thing, was named the Boston Celtics head coach today. So this was I think a more surprising hire. I know there's a lot of, higher tier names floated, but I think this again shows Brad Stevens' nature. I think this was going to be his nature as the president of basketball operations. He strikes while the iron's hot. He makes very quick decisions. It looks like 2 for 2, very quick and decisive decisions. We'll see what that portends to free agency and the trade market going forward. But what were your thoughts on the hire?
Obviously, reading and listening to a couple of podcasts, this is obviously a player's hire, in the sense that this is the coach that the players wanted. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. This is the guy that they wanted. So obviously, this is a move based on what the players wanted, and obviously he has experience with coaching with the Spurs and the Sixers, and now with the Nets, and now ultimately coming the Boston's head coach. In my personal opinion, with being a Celtic fan, I personally wanted Rick Carlisle, just because Rick Carlisle is a more experienced coach, and a championship coach, and I think, in my opinion, is a top 3 coach in the NBA. So I personally wanted Rick Carlisle, but we'll see. It's yet to be seen. He's a new Udoka is a new first-time head coach. So we'll see what he brings to the table.
I honestly think Rick Carlisle is just waiting to see what the Bucks do. If the Bucks flame out, his style of coaching to what that team needs, a sense of offensive direction at a lot of the times, I think is just tailor-made for each other. It's just a match made in heaven. So I think he's just waiting to see what shakes out with that. We mentioned that this season is so wide open that Bud might just end up winning and, become, the coach. Once you win a title, you're almost like a made man in this league. But you never know, because Rick Carlisle was on the hot seat going into this season in Dallas. So, but
I mean, I wouldn't understand why. I mean, you could look at their roster and you can't expect much.
The funny thing about it is, and I was thinking about this today, if Luka, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to immediately go to the race thing, but if he was any other superstar, I don't understand why he wouldn't be getting trashed. This is a guy, right?
Getting trashed for what? What is he getting? What do you want him to get trashed for?
I mean, he's part of the reason that Rick Kyle left the team.
Okay, but
there's story after story of him publicly berating Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle, who's rated by his peers consistently as a top 3 coach, rated by the NBA media consistently by a top 3 coach, naked eye test to fans, consistently a top 3 coach. He pushed him out. A guy who's never won anything who's never even won a first-round playoff series. A player can publicly berate him. A young player at that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with that. I mean, but you know that
nobody said it's crickets.
In this NBA, the superstar is always going to be picked over the coach. A coach is replaceable. Coaches grow on trees. Superstar players don't. So
I get it, but I'm just saying
roll with the superstar player, and but I understand what you're saying because I myself just called Rick Carlisle a top tier coach.
Yeah, you called him a top tier coach. Yeah, and the facts were that him and Luka didn't get along, that he was going to be on the hot seat. So how is it that this young player who's never won anything can put an NBA championship head coach on the hot seat? Can put a top 3 coach? I'll piece them together. How can he force out a top tier coach? And nobody says nothing.
I mean, like I said, it's the NBA that we're in today.
That's true, but when LeBron wanted to trade, trade them kids for Anthony Davis, the NBA media was on fire. Oh, it's not fair. You wrecked the season. How can you do such a thing? There's a certain structure to way things go. But this young kid who's never got out the first round can exert pressure to the point where Rick Carlisle has to dip.
I mean,
explain it to me, man. Explain it to me like a fourth grader.
I mean, the only explanation that I can give is superstars run the league. When LeBron decided that he was going to Miami, there was a shift in the league. And the players I believe that day, the players took over the league, and the superstars run the league now. And an organization is always going to pick a superstar over a coach. The coaches are replaceable. You can find another coach. It's hard to find another superstar that's under contract.
It's true. It's true. My only question is, we're seeing what Aiden is doing, right? We're seeing what Aiden's doing, right? Dominating, right? Yeah. We're seeing what Trae Young is doing, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so like,
yeah, but everything is context. But everything is context. Okay. Hold on, because everything is context, because that's not fair. Because if we're going to talk about that, okay, but let's talk about Aiton's roster. Ayton is playing with Devin Booker, Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, Cameron Payne, Torrey Craig. And then you talk about Trae Young playing with Gallinari, Herter, Bogdanovich, Clint Capella, John Collins. Obviously, DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish are not playing, but Lou Williams. You're talking about these plethora of players, all these nice pieces that are around them. And you talk about Luka Doncic, and then you say, okay, Luka, and then who? You're talking about Tim Hardaway. Yes, Tim Hardaway is a good player, a 3-and-D player, but he can be up and down at times. You're talking about Porzingis. We could do a whole nother episode on him if you would like. We could do a whole episode.
We can, because I think you can treat it unfairly. I believe you can treat it unfairly.
Outside of that, when you're talking about, and no disrespect to the Dallas Mavericks, their roster, but we can't compare the two. Those if you took the Mavericks roster and you put the Suns roster and the Hawks roster, and you put them all three of those rosters next to each other, 90% of people will say one doesn't match the other two. One doesn't match the other two.
Listen, I agree with you. All I'm saying is that I just think the coverage, for some reason, he's Teflon. And, this is what I don't like about the NBA coverage.
If we're going to do that, we got to give him a real roster. Once he gets a real serious roster, with real players around him, real shooters. And I'm not going to say real players because he does have real players. Anybody that's in the NBA is a good player. You don't make it to the NBA not being, trash. And I hate when people but there's levels to it. And obviously Luka doesn't have that luxury where you could shoot 5 of 23 in a game 7 and still win, which is Trae Young. Isn't that what he shot in the Philly game? He shot.
I think it was 5 of 24.
It was 5 of 24 in game 7, and his team still won. So that should tell you.
But his team was playing against a team.
Hold on, but what I'm saying,
they're playing 5-on-4 basketball, man. Come on, man.
Hold on. In game three in the Dallas series, where Luka was that game 3 where he suffered the injury, where he got hurt.
Yeah,
and Luka was bad in that game. Dallas was blown out. Let's be real. Any game that Luka's not good in, they're gonna get blown out.
Yeah, but we also have to acknowledge
all 3 of their wins. He was special. True,
but we also have to acknowledge the fact that Atlanta was playing 4-on-5. So, hey, you go 5 of 24, where we're playing against another team or somebody on another team that doesn't want to shoot.
But seriously,
5 of 24 is better.
I'm saying that at a certain point, you're asking him to do everything. You're asking him to carry the team and win a series and be the best player. And it's like you have a point. But we know on this between me and you and most NBA fans, most writers, we know that there's only one person in our league that does that. And that's LeBron. LeBron's the only person that is capable of doing that, who's capable of moving mountains. And I know they want to say, oh, Kawhi's better than him, KD's better than him. You can go back and forth with the arguments, but LeBron's the only person that does that. You can put him on any roster and say, okay, you know what, LeBron, take us home, get us to the playoffs. Okay, we have a chance in this series because we have LeBron. And I just think that Luka is faced with that these last 2 years, because the roster is not the best, and his Robin is not even a Robin.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. If it's his play or if he just doesn't have that ability anymore. So we'll talk about that when we break them down. But we'll go ahead and end it here. Definitely rate, subscribe, leave a comment. Eric, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
For our team evaluations, we're going to be dropping that tomorrow. Sacramento Kings and New York Knicks. Check that out. Like my brother said, subscribe, drop a comment. Any criticisms that you guys have, we're more than welcome to it. We're trying to get this better, trying to get this thing going. So subscribe, and follow, and thank you guys for being here with us.
All right. Everybody stay safe, stay solid. We'll see you soon.
So what's up, man? What's up with you otherwise, The game is a game. Always.